Welcome to the Washington State University Emergency Response System. The WSU ERS is an application developed to test your ability to make decisions in a pressure situation. The highest scores in each section will be rewarded with a $25 gift card to the bookie. The WSU ERS is a system similar to one used by 911 dispatchers. Today, you will play the role of one of these dispatchers. The calls are being taken by an operator and entered into the system. Your role is to now dispatch these scenarios to the appropriate authorities. First, let's take a look at the application and how it works. In the rightmost corner of the application, you will see a timer. Please dispatch calls for the full duration of this experiment because new scenarios will continue to arrive at irregular intervals. The following rules will help you properly dispatch. First, each scenario falls into one of 4 categories based on its priority. Your goal is to answer the scenarios with the highest priority first. To dispatch a scenario, click on it in the list of scenarios and read a more detailed description. Next, based on the description, select the correct number of units to be dispatched and finalize your response. Please note that in all scenarios, a team of experts has previously agreed on one correct answer. You must select that correct answer to receive points for that scenario. The following number of points are assigned for correct answers. Highest, 40 points, high, 20 points, medium, 10 points, and low, 5 points. If necessary, you may use the Worksheet tab to help you assign units based on the system's rule sets. The worksheet columns and rows are filled out using 911 shorthand notation. If you forget what this shorthand notation stands for, or simply need an explanation, hover over the description and a more detailed explanation of these terms will reveal itself. For example, if it was unclear what the term DOMP meant, you could hover over the term and see that it means domestic problem. These additional descriptions may also help you decide which assets to dispatch. For example, hovering over ambulance tells you that you should send an ambulance if there are injuries at a scene or if the code is MEDEM, which stands for medical emergency. Looking at the corresponding row reminds you that one ambulance is to be sent for every 2 persons. In other words, an ambulance can hold up to 2 people. So in this case, if there was an injury, you would send 1 ambulance. If there were 3 injuries, you would send 2 ambulances, 1 ambulance for the first 2 casualties and 1 for the 3rd casualty. The way the worksheet helps assign units is helping you add up the units you plan to dispatch based on the scenario. In the case of basic assignments, clicking once on a button will add the desired number of units. Clicking again on the same button will add more units. For example, if there is a domestic problem in Pullman, but not on campus, the basic response is to send 1 Pullman police car. You would not send Whitman or state police because, as the description tells you, they're only to be used if domestic problems are in Colfax, Colton, or Clarkston. You would not send WSU police because the scenario is not on campus at WSU. Buttons with a plus next to them are intended to build upon basic scenarios. The plus means add this number of units in addition to those already selected for the basic scenario, and they're additive. In other words, they build on each other. For example, if there's a property fire, the basic response calls for dispatching 1 fire truck, unless there's an active fire alarm, in which case you would dispatch an additional truck because of the alarm. For a medium fire, you would dispatch the 1 fire truck for the basic scenario, which we already did, and then a second for the medium fire. Now finally, for a large fire, where there's also a fire alarm active, you would dispatch 5 fire trucks, 1 for the basic fire, 1 for the alarm, 1 because the fire is at least a medium fire, and finally 2 more because the fire is large. If this scenario was coded with the highest priority as well, then you would also add an additional police car. In a more complicated scenario, you may add more units to the basic response package by clicking more than 1 time on a button. For example, if there's a domestic problem on campus at WSU, and that domestic problem is also blocking traffic, then the correct response is to deploy 1 WSU police car for each incident, one to control the domestic problem and one to control the traffic. You will note that domestic problems come in multiple varieties, as do traffic problems, but they are not additive like fire trucks unless there are multiple incidents, multiple locations, or some sort of aggravating factors, which we'll now talk about. In the case of aggravating factors, the term any or all of simply means that you would dispatch one additional police car if a scenario meets any of the 3 criteria listed, but if it meets multiple criteria, you would still only dispatch one additional police car. The case of the ambulance dispatch was discussed previously, but this box clarifies that medical emergencies may be standalone or may be a subset of other emergency types. Finally, high-risk operations, bomb threats and detonations, as well as hazardous materials, may require you to dispatch additional teams to handle those scenarios. So read the descriptions of these terms carefully to understand when and where they would apply. Now, the worksheet function automatically adds up units based on your input in the subtotal section. You can delete the input and start over by clicking Clear, or you can accept the input by clicking Load Recommendations, which automatically shuts the workspace function down and loads the recommended actions into the dispatch box. And you can either accept the actions, the recommendations that were given to you by the workspace, or you can override those recommendations before clicking Finalize. You can always reopen the worksheet function and perform this again if necessary. As with any system feature, the worksheet function cannot cover all possible scenarios you may encounter. If you feel that you've been given a scenario that the worksheet function does not support, either because of its size, complexity, or information available, please use your best judgment to try to respond the way you think the system intends you to. Also, please note that it is not to your benefit to over-allocate resources because you only have a limited number of units available for dispatch. Before dispatching units, you must finalize your answer, and then signify your level of confidence in the accuracy of that dispatch, with 1 meaning low confidence and 10 meaning very, very high confidence. This will help the responding units understand whether or not you feel you have adequately solved all of the problems presented by the scenario and act accordingly. Finally, the scenario ends and you can dispatch additional scenarios once you push the Submit button. So let's run through a quick demonstration which simulates what it might look like when you just started the program. In this case, you've chosen to select the highest priority scenario, which is colored red and also located at the top of the list. In order to answer this, you can obviously interpret the rules mentally, then make a dispatch determination, or, more likely, use the workspace feature. Now, according to the workspace feature, the scenario appears to consist of a single incident, a domestic problem in Colfax. Therefore, the standard response is 1 Whitman County police car. Also available from the scenario are 2 aggravating factors. First, the incident is of the highest priority in nature, in which case it necessitates the dispatch of 1 additional Whitman County police car. Finally, there are weapons involved, which necessitates the dispatch of an additional Whitman County police car. You can see the workspace recommendation is 3 Whitman County police cars. In this case, it appears that this meets the requirements of the scenario, so you would load the recommendations in the Dispatch Actions section. Note that it is possible to change the recommendations at this point. However, in this case, the recommendation appears valid, so you would next press Finalize, indicate your level of confidence in the dispatch, Submit, and then move on to the next dispatch. You'll spend 5 minutes getting familiar with the WSU ERS and learning how to correctly dispatch. Your goal is to be able to dispatch about 5 scenarios per minute accurately. Second, you'll spend about 10 minutes dispatching a wide variety of scenarios. During this period, new scenarios will show up regularly, so try to keep your queue of scenarios to a minimum. Third, you'll be given about 4 additional minutes to catch up and dispatch 1 final set of scenarios. When you're done with the last set of scenarios, you will answer a set of questions that pertain only to the final set of scenarios. If you have any questions before beginning the study, please ask them at this time. Remember, to win, both speed and accuracy will be important. Good luck!